Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. Right then, can't mess about. Got another boxing up recording. Need to make some space, and maybe a few shillings could be up for grabs. I've got 8 of these compilation commando for action and adventure comic books. Big chunky things. I've read most of them. Have I read most of them? Picked them up a while ago. Well, it was some years back now. My son enjoyed them. We used to sit and read them together. Haven't looked at them in a long time. So, yep, they're going in the box. Next up, Ragnarok, heavy metal combat in the Viking Age. Tim Korkuleski, butchered that. Osprey Games, using something called the Morpheus engine. It's a kind of vaguely supernatural-ish Viking skirmish game. I think I've had it a couple of years. I don't think it's going to get to the table. As is the way with Osprey, super nice sewn binding. It's a funny sort of size. It's got an RRP of £25. I don't think I paid that, but that I can't see it getting to the table. If I'm going to play a Viking game, I'm probably just going to use rules that I've already got, such as Dragon Rampant or something similar to that, or Blood Rage. So that's going in the box. Now here's one I've deliberated over for a little while, and it's Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I really like the production on these books. This is the hardback player's core book and rules and magic, but I picked it up to play in John Large's game. Unfortunately, we ended up playing Castles and Crusades instead of this, so this has never actually seen any use in anger, and to be fair, I find the art a little bit objectionable. Each to their own, but yeah, just for me a little bit hard to stomach. Some of it is super gory, and I don't know, it's just not my jam. Yeah, I've got no actual problem with it. You know, I'm not gonna go to war over it, but no, it kind of turns my stomach a little bit. So yeah, there's some really great ideas in there as well, and I mean, I've got the free art. I've got the free PDF that's got none of the art, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a bonus. Unfortunate, but there you go. I don't know. And then I've got this other thing, Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It was a free RPG product, Eldritch Cock. Well, that says it all, really. Super long descriptions for a bunch of spells. Sometimes I think, I don't know, I think old Raji, he tries a bit hard. He tries a bit hard to be an edgelord, I think, sometimes. Maybe that's just him, he's being himself, I don't know. But not a lot of use to me as a family gamer, really. I don't need a rake of artwork with guys with like 6-foot penises dragging about on the floor. Yeah, enough said. Then I've got this other one. This is from the Fate. Who is it now? Evil Hat Productions, that's it. Young Centurions. I kept this back. I purged some of my Fate books recently, and just to make space. I mean, this is quite a cool little book, but realistically, I just can't see myself getting round to playing it. I'm just too busy playing them hamburger and cornflakes type games. You know, the regular kind of D&D. Then Fate Accelerated. Yeah, that goes with that because no point in keeping it. Then I've got BX Essentials Core Rules. It was a kind of print on demand, super slim, little bit jinky set of core rules. Saddle. I should probably check this out. I dare say it's collectible now. The price of BX Essentials stuff, first edition, is already gone crazy. Over £100. Just, I don't know, ridiculous prices. And then my old faithful copy of Dungeon World. I've played it one time at a con. Some really good ideas in there. Nothing I can't find elsewhere. Taking up space on the shelf. Maybe I'll put this on eBay. There's someone out there that will appreciate it and use it more than me. So that is also going in the box. And that concludes my boxing up session for today. And that's enough talk about games that have missed the mark. Now for games that we enjoy, and we're jumping in the Wayback Machine, picking up where we left off. It's part 3 with the GMologist himself, Mr. Karl Rodriguez. Now, talking of back in the day, I dabbled with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay when it first came out.
Yeah.
And always thought it was very atmospheric. I like the vibe, but with our group, it never really got the traction because it sort of just depended on who you was hanging about with. And for a while, there was the guy who ran Warhammer. He was a bit more of a loner. Interestingly enough, he was a big American football fan. So we'd play Warhammer Fantasy, and then when everybody was getting a bit restless, we'd take out his pigskin football and go out over the fields, and we'd sort of try and play some sort of strange version of American football because it was on the telly at the time. It was on Channel 4, and we could actually see the games. And this was in the time of the Chicago Bears were massive, and you had the refrigerator, the fridge. He was the man.
Yeah.
So it was back in them
days. Back in the 80s, yeah.
But you have been loving the latest edition. I bounced off it a little bit, but I'm interested. What is it about this game that keeps you coming back for more?
Honestly, I think it's this particular group. They're people who have played the Warhammer Fantasy Battle, Warhammer 40K. They're into the GW verse lore. They love the old world, and they've bought in. Although that's only true for like 3 of the players. 2 of the players, this is like one of the players is their first journey in, and the other player, it's the second time he's played, but the first time he feels he's played for real. Because in the other time we ran this, he kind of came in at the tail end and didn't get to make a proper character and see the career development. And he's really getting into it. I guess that's the appeal. It's like you really can. It's not a game where you're like heroic off the bat. You could be a peasant, a villager, a peddler of spoons, a rat catcher, but you'll have a vicious dog if you're a rat catcher, which is cool. So, but you for the most part, you start lowly, and that's kind of the demographic of the people of the time. And I think maybe that's what the appeal is. You can start. Sure, you'll have maybe someone who might get lucky and roll a noble or a knight, but for the most part, you start as a nobody, and that's part of the appeal, I think, at least to this group. Now you can, in the new rule set, you can either do everything random and you start off with bonus XP when you off the bat, or you can choose your own fate, and you probably start a little more powerful at the beginning, but you have less to work, less XP to work with to improve your character, right? So for example, we have a character who decided they wanted to make a wizard, and he decided to make an elven wizard at that. So he chose his species and his occupation, which is a chunk of XP off the bat, So you could do that in the new system, which I think makes it very versatile too. For those people who want to min max and play something specific, they have a way to make a character. For those who just want to roll randomly and let the fates decide, they have that. And it's just, I think the game is just really written. There's something appealing about this sort of grim dark. Yes, the world is serious. There's some serious shit going on, but sometimes it's just kind of funny. There's some humor,
Yeah, well, Games Workshop is quite well known, especially back in the old days, for kind of having a typical sort of English or UK sense of humour. I think some people have attributed it to the politics of the day with Margaret Thatcher in charge of the country, and I think some of the the student vibe that perhaps was Games Workshop were a bit more socialist, and they're in the Midlands in typical kind of like mining country and industrial kind of settings. So it comes across in like 2000 AD, the comic as well.
Yeah.
All that type of vibe. White Dwarf, it gets talked about a lot, and I don't fully understand it because I was just a little bit too young to understand it at the time. But looking back, I can see it.
Maybe there's just like a cynicism or a fatalism that people just, it's like one of those shrug your shoulders as a character, right? As a player, not as a player necessarily, but as a character, you just shrug your shoulders and make the best of it. And there can be some funny moments along the way, and those intersperses of humor help. But I've had comments from players that it's not heroic enough. But I definitely disagree. I mean, there's been some really cool heroic moments, last stands that are meaningful, right? That leaps off of exploding structures that you really need you would really need a low roll right now type of thing, and it happens. So it's neat.
You've jumped in with the big name campaigns as well, haven't you? Like they are Shadow Over, Bougainville, or whatever it is, Enemy Within.
Yeah, the Enemy Within campaign, which was actually done way back in the first edition of the game, and they've redone it. I feel like they've done it a couple times, but
I think that's
now
right.
This one is a recreation of the original for the fourth edition, and it's done really well. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with it, and it has a lot of playability within it that is not necessarily in line with the main plot too, which I think is great, about it. And like I did with Invictus, I let the characters explore the world, and I think that's what's kind of cool and important. And we played an earlier campaign, Terror in Talabheim, where Skaven, the rat folk in the world, explode from underneath from the underground and take over the city. But we started that campaign with a classic adventure, Rough Night at the Three Feathers, which originally appeared in White Dwarf, and it's like the movie Four Rooms. Like, you sit there in a tavern, in a coaching inn in the world, and you just kind of watch things happen, and you can participate or not. The characters participated in that adventure, and it definitely benefited them. But it was a lot of hilarity that ensued because of their interaction, because of what was going on with all the different. It's like multiple storylines are happening, and they're totally unrelated, but the characters get involved with them, so then they mesh with each other. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool how that happened, and that's, I think, why at least one of the players, who doesn't. This is the only game he plays. He's not really an RPGer. He's more of a tabletop miniatures guy, and this is the only game he plays because he loves how things work out. He loves the game a lot. He really likes the game. So that's, I think that's cool. It's the one person that's the only game I play because I really like it, and there's something hilarious happens every time. Something dramatic too. Not all is hilarious. Something dramatic. Like, I think this last time I talked about it recently in my podcast. This is a player that sort of dressed down another player for dabbling with chaos, and it was he had a really amazing monologue, right? Again, as someone who doesn't normally play RPGs, getting in character, which I think is a testament to the game and how well it works for some people. It's not everyone's cup of tea, right? Because again, it's not, you can combat, and maybe that's it, right? I think that's maybe combat is deadly. You can really have a bad day if you are not cautious.
I would definitely like to try it out again. It's been so long, and like I said, I started to read it, but it's a big old rule book, and I just sort of bounced off it a bit. I'd been attracted to the idea of the character generation that you briefly explained, and
it's definitely more flexible.
Yeah,
in this game, because I have a guy who started as a villager, and then because the opportunity arose, he switched over to becoming a boatman. Now he's like a bosun, he's advanced in the boatman career, but then he had an experience this last adventure where maybe I can become a warrior priest, So it's definitely more flexible than it has been in the past. It just, you just kind of, it's not simple to understand, but once you understand it, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Now, talking about flexible games, this brings me on to another one that I've read recently and was most impressed with the way the book was put together. It seemed to have everything in a nice, concise package, and that is Savage Worlds Adventure Edition. Is that what you're using to play your Deadlands game?
Right. I use that to run the Deadlands game. And yeah, I run a live Deadlands game with our Sunday dinner group. I run a sporadic Deadlands game with the Audio Dungeon Discord group. And I also use Savage Worlds. I just started a Friday night roleplay group with some pretty famous people, at least in the podcast world, gaming world, of East Texas University. So it is a flexible system. It's a really well put together. The main rule book is really well put together, and you don't need to buy these other things, although they're very attractive. Right? There's a Savage Pathfinder, for example, Savage Worlds rule set in the Pathfinder verse of Galarion. There's a Savage Rifts out there. There's a Savage Flash Gordon, but you could just use if you just have a simple, well, not a simple. If you just have a tale in mind, it's pretty flexible to use in many and a lot of genres. You don't have to buy a world book.
That was the impression I got. It looks like it will stand up well on its own. It's a toolkit of stuff in there. There's so many things, and loads of the ideas seem really suitable to cross over into other games. And that I always find that useful. Right. And I mean, you talked about it when you mentioned Invictus, how you had this idea of skill challenges coming in there, and when you're playing multiple games, it's handy if you can take the best bits that you like and repurpose them into another game.
Yeah, like Savage Worlds has action cards mechanic that they use often, mainly for initiative and combat. But they use the action card sequence for chase scenes. They use the action card sequence for skill challenges. So you really get a lot of mileage off one kind of set of rules that can be pulled out and used for different situations, not just combat, not just your regular skill.
And once again, big thanks to Karl Rodriguez. I hope you enjoyed that. Unfortunately, next episode is going to be the final part, so tune in again from that one. But there is more coming from Karl. In this episode, we've got some feedback from the man himself and some other loyal supporters, members of the pit crew, in the form of Jason Connolly and Jay Webster. Coming up right now.
Hey, Colin, thanks for publishing that interview. It was really fun to do. And I really like that you took out all the pauses and ums, or whoever engineered it did a fantastic job. I sound pretty good. I sound professional. So I appreciate that, what you guys did and to make this kind of come to life. Man, I can't believe how long it's been since we ran that Call of Cthulhu Invictus campaign. And it'd be neat to pick something up like that again. I think I'm focusing in on the War of the Roses period because it'd be very interesting to have players like as knights in shining armor, really, right, with a heavy plate, and see if that arms and armor of that day helps against the mythos.
Hey, Colin, Jason here. Really enjoyed the update of what's going on with you before part 2 of Karl's interview. It sounds like you're transitioned well, and you're really getting into it. And who knows, hopefully, like you say, you'll be able to bring a lot of these lessons over to your RPG time once you get back into that. But yeah, it sounds really cool. It sounds like it's going to be a very fulfilling job for you, which is great. And I'm very happy for you, my friend. I really am. Okay, let me go listen to the interview.
Hey Colin, Che. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing the first part of that interview with Karl Rodriguez. I really enjoyed it. It was good fun to listen to. And I look forward to, if there's any more, listening to some more of that. That'd be great. Hope you're well. Happy New Year, mate. Game on.
A big thanks then to the guys, the pit crew there who've called in. And big thanks to the rest of the pit crew who, throw a couple of dollars a month into the Spike Pit Patreon. It's much appreciated. And podcasters, one and all, they are too. Check out the GMologist for Karl, the GMologist Presents. You've got Che Webster on Roleplay Rescue, and of course Jason Connolly on Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Now, I'm going to close out with a message from Karl, and this is why the music for this episode has changed. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. It's a bit of a tribute to Karl, and I've even gone back and changed the other GMologist episodes to reflect, I think, his own personal music tastes a little bit closer.
Hey, Colin, I wanted again to thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview on your show. And I thought what was very cool was the music discussion. That was pretty good. The progression of heavy metal in the 80s to the early 90s, and then what metal and gaming means to me. It's kind of a neat thing to hear about and to reflect upon and to remind myself what it all means, right? So thank you again for that, and cool. I'm now on to continue listening. I guess it's time for talking about all the games in Twilight 2000.
And that, as they say, is a wrap. Big thanks goes out to you, the listener, for taking a bit of time out of your day to listen to old Spike Pit. Take care, and I'll catch you later.